In 1930, in South Africa, a baby named Peter was born to a couple of English immigrants. With his father passing away weeks before his birth, the boy was raised by his mother and nanny, who taught him about his English and African roots. However, one day, the farm's cattle began to perish from a terrible disease, which left Peter's mother in despair. Unable to take care of the house and her son, her only choice was to send her son to a boarding school, but the place was run by a radical community of Afrikaners. Due to historical conflicts with the English, the Afrikaners were totally against the presence of immigrants. For this reason, Peter was tormented by his classmates, especially by Botha, the oldest student in the class. To make matters worse, sometime later, the young man receives the news that his mother has passed away, forcing him to remain at the boarding school. After the funeral, Peter tells his nanny about what he has been going through with the students, and she takes him to meet Dabula Manzi, a famous healer in the region. At night, he performs a ritual with a young man so that Peter can learn to bury his fears and find true courage. To help him with this, Dabula places 3 chickens inside rings on the ground, and one of them flies toward the boy, becoming his new companion. Then, the healer puts Peter into a state of hypnosis and the young man is transported to the jungle, where he encounters a huge elephant. However, instead of running away, Peter reaches out to pet the animal, showing enormous courage and passing the healer's test. In addition to overcoming his fears, the boy named the chicken Masabindi, which in his language means mother courage. With his new friend, Peter returns to boarding school, and whenever a troublemaker tries to attack him, Masabindi helps him escape. However, more problems arise in the young man's life when World War II begins. Before long, the German leader's tyranny becomes a source of inspiration among the boarding school students, especially Botha, who holds a ceremony in honor of the dictator. Not only that, but he orders his classmates to bring Peter to him to punish him as an English traitor. Botha then ties Masabindi's legs and, in front of the boy, shoots them off with a slingshot. This provokes Peter's fury, who pushes the leader and knocks him to the ground, but he orders his classmates to tie the young man up with a rope. When all seems lost, a boarding school teacher bursts into the room, orders everyone to release Peter, and expels Botha from the school. The next day, Peter returns home to bury Masabindi and receives the news that his grandfather will raise him. He is then taken to his new home by a close friend of his grandfather's, Dr. Karl, a renowned German pianist. Before long, Karl and Peter form a father-son bond, with the musician teaching the boy everything he knows. However, Karl ends up being arrested by the Afrikaners for being an illegal foreigner in the country. Despite this, the Afrikaners respect his German origins and allow Dr. Karl to keep his piano and receive visitors. With that, Peter goes every day to learn piano lessons and plant crops with him, but Karl worries about the boy, as he cannot defend himself. So, Dr. Karl goes to another wing of the prison, where boxing training is held for prisoners to fight each other. Once there, Karl meets Gil Pete, a prisoner known for his talent as a boxer, who agrees to train Peter. As his first lesson, he tells the young man that in boxing and in life, you have to use your head first, and your heart second. Peter follows this teaching, and in the coming days, he learns to dodge attacks and throw punches, proving himself to be a fighter with potential. After another training session, Gil goes to talk to Karl, asking him to give him some tobacco leaves, used to preserve the plants. The doctor readily agrees, but they have to do this in secret, as the prison guard, Sergeant Bormann, is always watching. So, with Peter's help, the doctor always leaves tobacco leaves in the pots so that Gil can distribute them to the other prisoners. 5 years later, Peter has grown up and become a talented boxer, winning all the youth boxing matches organized in the prison. In addition, the young man has also been helping prisoners by writing letters to their families. Over time, Peter becomes known as the rainmaker, an African myth of a hero who, in difficult times, brings reign of peace and prosperity to all peoples. Peter does not think he deserves this title, but Gil advises him to continue using his intelligence to help others, as this can save lives. The boy thanks him and hands over another bucket of tobacco leaves. But Sergeant Bormann watches from afar and calls for Gil. He orders the prisoner to throw what is inside the bucket, but Karl had switched it seconds before and only dirty water comes out. Even so, the sergeant remains suspicious, and in a despicable act, he dirties his foot with the fertilizer used on the plantations and orders Gil to eat it all. With no other choice, the prisoner is forced to obey and is even pushed by the guard, who belittles him with various insults. Despite this humiliation, Gil is honored by Peter, Karl, and the other prisoners, who admire his courage and resilience. On another morning in prison, Karl receives the news that the war is ending, and he will soon return to Germany. However, before leaving, the prison director goes to talk to the doctor, asking him to organize a musical concert for the commissioner's visit. The doctor has no interest in playing for those people, but Gil convinces him, as this concert will cheer up all the prisoners. Peter also supports the idea, and thanks to his writing skills, he is responsible for the lyrics, while Carl composes the melody. With everything ready, Gil gathers all the prisoners, and under Peter's guidance, they learn the lyrics and rhythm of the song. The lyrics talk about the cowardice of the guards and the courage of the prisoners, but Peter wrote everything in the native language so that the warden would not know what the song was about. After days of rehearsal, the night of the performance arrives and everyone is ready, but Peter can't see Gil anywhere. Shortly after, the warden takes the guests to the outside area of the prison and begins to give orders to the prisoners, with Peter translating so that they can understand. However, instead of translating word for word, the young man changes the speech, motivating the prisoners to show their talent to everyone. With all the prisoners motivated, Dr. Carl begins to play the piano, while Peter conducts the choir to sing to the rhythm of the music. Meanwhile, Gil finishes ironing his clothes and leaves excited to watch the big performance. However, he is detained by Sergeant Bormann, who begins to attack him and demands to know the meaning of the music. With no way to escape, the prisoner puts his fear aside and reveals the truth, that the music shows how cowardly the prison guards are. This only makes the sergeant even more furious, and he attacks Gil even more. Back at the performance, everyone is impressed by the song, and Peter continues to conduct the choir when Bormann approaches the stage. Seeing the blood on his baton, the young man runs to Gil's cell, only to find him lying on the floor, seriously injured. Peter does his best to help him, but Gil does not survive, and before his last breath, he asks the young man to follow his greatest teaching. In life or in boxing, use your head first, and then your heart. Once again, Peter is forced to say goodbye to a friend, and with the end of the war, Carl also leaves prison and returns to his country. Years later, Peter, now a teenager, continues his studies and becomes one of the best students in the class, along with his friend, Gilbert. During philosophy class, the young man tells his teacher his story and about the tragic loss of his friend, Gil Pete. Still, the prisoners took justice into their own hands, and a month later, Sergeant Bormann was found perished in Gil's cell. After class, the teacher calls Peter and Gilbert to talk and tells them that they have both been recommended for a scholarship to Oxford University. Due to his humble background, this is the chance Peter has been waiting for, and he waits for news while continuing with his second passion, boxing. In a competition organized at the school, Peter reaches the final and fights his opponent, taking advantage with several well-aimed punches. However, he ends up getting distracted when he sees a beautiful young woman with red hair named Maria. Because of this, the boy takes a direct punch to the chin and falls to the ground, with the referee starting the count. However, Maria encourages him to get up and Peter comes back with everything, ready for the second round. As soon as the referee gives the signal, Peter uses a technique he learned from Gil, landing 8 consecutive punches and ending the fight with a knockout. Thanks to this, the young man is the big winner of the contest, but he is more concerned with meeting the beautiful young woman, who leaves after the fight. With Gilbert's help, Peter discovers that she is the daughter of a renowned Afrikaner professor, Daniel Mare. For this reason, the man despises the English and the native peoples, not allowing his daughter to get involved with those he considers inferior. Even so, Peter does not give up, and at night, he goes to the girls' dormitory, where he finds Maria on the balcony, observing the sky through a telescope. When they meet, the young woman says he cannot stay there, but Peter wanted to meet her and says he has not been able to stop thinking about her since he first saw her. Elizabeth reciprocates his feelings, and Peter promises to talk to her father and ask his permission for them to date. The next morning, Peter goes to meet with Professor Mare, but the professor quickly realizes the young man's British origins and forbids Maria from seeing him. Despite this, the young couple continues to meet in secret, and to earn money, Peter decides to train to participate in boxing competitions. He then goes with Gilbert to Mr. Grunwald's gym and asks for his help to train and compete in official fights. At first, the coach does not believe in the young fighter's potential, but Peter insists that he was trained by Gil Pete, a famous boxer in prison. Mr. Grunewald decides to put this to the test and holds a friendly fight with one of his students, but in a few minutes, Peter easily defeats his opponent. Everyone is impressed, including the gym's heavyweight fighter, and Mr. Grunewald promptly offers to manage the young man. Days later, he calls Peter and Gilbert to talk business, as he has secured an important fight in the Alexandra community. The fight's organizer is Elias, an old cellmate of Gil's who wants to introduce his most talented fighter, Gideon Duma. At first, Peter refuses the offer, as he knows that mixed fights are prohibited, but Gideon challenges him, as he already knows about the myth of the rainmaker. Gideon wants to prove that these legends do not exist and that true strength lies in the people. So he proposes that the two fight in the ring, and if Peter wins, Gideon promises to support the myth of the rainmaker and make him the symbol of the fight against the oppressive system. Seeing the importance of this fight, Peter accepts and the two agree to face each other in Alexandria. Upon learning about this dispute, Maria also decides to go and the two head to the community, with dozens of residents waiting for the big event. As soon as Peter and Gideon are ready, they enter the ring and the referee authorizes the start of the fight. Despite Peter's skill, Gideon proves to be an aggressive fighter and takes the advantage in the dispute, hitting him with several punches until he knocks the young boxer to the ground. Peter quickly gets up for a new round, but the result is the same and he can't find a gap in his opponent's defense. With the situation becoming increasingly critical, the fight goes into a break and Grunewald advises Peter to change his strategy and hit him in the stomach. The young man follows his advice, and as soon as the round begins, Peter attacks with a series of punches to Gideon's stomach. The fighter feels the blows, but retaliates with direct punches to the young man, until he hits his chin and knocks Peter to the ground once again. With this blow, the young man can barely open his eyes, and for a moment, he remembers the vision he had in the ritual with the healer. At that moment, Peter again sees the elephant coming towards him, but just like before, the young man is not afraid and faces his fears. Just as he did years ago, Peter rises to the challenge and challenges Gideon to one last round. Following the teachings of Grunewald and Giel, he continues to land punches to his stomach and ends the fight with his sequence of 8 punches. Gideon falls to the ground and the referee begins the count, but the boxer is unable to get up and Peter is declared the winner. Everyone around is completely silent, but Gideon gets up and, in an honorable gesture, raises Peter's arm and names him the true rainmaker. After the fight, Peter takes Maria back to the dorm, but before leaving, the young woman invites him to the prom. She intends to tell her father everything, and even if he refuses, she will take Peter as her date. The young man readily accepts the invitation and leaves, unaware that a police officer is watching him from afar. It is revealed that Professor Mare asked the police to keep an eye on Peter, as he will not allow him to get involved with his daughter. Another day passes and Peter goes to Alexandria to meet Gideon, with the two running and training together around the city. Along the way, he shows the young man the sad reality of his people, where they have only one public bathroom for every 200 people and only 2% of the population has the right to study. Finally, Gideon says he plans to unite all people, regardless of color, in a more harmonious life. However, he needs a strong leader like the Rainmaker who can help black people fight for their rights, and the first step is to teach them to read and write in English. Faced with this enormous responsibility, Peter refuses, but Gideon tells the young man that he must make a choice. If he really wants to fight inequality among peoples, he must find something to believe in and fight for, or turn his back and give up everything. These words leave Peter thoughtful, and after reflecting, he agrees to teach the people and asks the school principal for help. Despite the risks of bringing black people to an Afrikaner school, the principal accepts, as this may be the first step towards unity between peoples. So, he authorizes Peter to teach secret classes at night, and the young man goes to tell Maria the news. When they meet, the girl is not happy with the news, as the class will be at the same time as the prom, and she believes that Peter values his cause more than her. Hurt, she returns home, and during dinner, her father announces that he will be the country's new prime minister. In addition, his first measure will be to reinforce the separation between Afrikaners and the black population, leaving them in an even smaller part of the city. While the guests congratulate him on his speech, Maria realizes that Peter was right and that her father, like so many others, is part of the problem. For the first time, the girl stands up to her father, saying that it is not fair to do this and that people deserve equal rights. This infuriates Professor Mare, and he forbids the girl from leaving the house or meeting Peter again. Maria refuses, and her father hits her in the face, causing the girl to leave home. Meanwhile, Peter takes Gideon and 12 residents of Alexandria to the school to begin studying English. The idea is for the students to pass on what they have learned, starting with reading and learning the pronunciation of vowels and consonants. In the middle of the explanation, Maria appears in the room, saying she is willing to help, which only makes Peter even more proud. What he didn't count on was that the same police officer hired by Mr. Mare was watching them from afar and reports everything to his superiors. Because of this, the next morning, Peter and Gilbert find out from the principal that the school will be closed indefinitely. The young man is upset and looks disapprovingly at the police officers. Peter soon realizes that one of them is Botha, the same student who tormented him at boarding school. Despite this additional problem, as soon as the officers leave, the principal hands the students their acceptance letters from Oxford, with Peter winning his long-awaited scholarship. Despite this achievement, the young man feels bad for the people of Alexandria because he cannot help them. Things only get worse at the boxing gym when Botha discovers that Peter is there and storms in to confront him. The man reveals that after being expelled, his father made his life hell. All this accumulated hatred led him to join the police, and now he uses his authority to attack all those he considers inferior. Faced with this cowardice, Mr. Grunewald is determined to support the fight against inequality and calls more black fighters to his gym. However, Botha does not miss the opportunity and invades the place again, this time to destroy the entire gym. Even though he loses his establishment, Grunewald is not intimidated and attacks Botha, punching the madman in the face. Because of this, he is taken to jail, and Peter shows up to help him, but there is nothing he can do about it. Things go from bad to worse for the young man, who secretly visits Maria and discovers that she will be taken to live with her aunt in another city. Still, Peter does not intend to give up on her and says that when he graduates from college, he will go get her no matter what. In addition, the young man will not abandon the residents of Alexandria and calls on everyone to continue their studies, this time in a church in the city. Once again, Maria appears at the scene, saying that she will not leave with her aunt because she wants to stay with Peter and help him in his fight. The couple then gets together to help the students, but outside the church, everyone hears the sound of cars parking. Seconds later, Botha and a battalion of police officers storm the place and announce the arrest of everyone, under the pretext that they are desecrating the church. Peter begs for the women to be spared, but the sergeant orders everyone to be taken into custody. Seeing that there is no way to stop them with words, Peter and the others try to resist by force and confront the police, who retaliate with their batons. In the midst of the confusion, Peter is about to be attacked from behind by a police officer, but Maria steps in front of him and is struck on the head. Unfortunately, the young woman falls to the ground, already lifeless, and, overcome with rage, Peter loses control and confronts the police officers. The confrontation ends tragically, with Maria losing her life. The next day, her parents hold a wake for her. During the funeral, Peter and the school students go to the cemetery, but when he sees the young man, Professor Mare grabs a shovel and advances toward him. Peter does not try to react, but the teacher stops the attack when he hears voices singing around him. Looking back, Mr. Mare is surprised to see the residents of Alexandria singing in tribute to the young woman who lost her life unjustly, but fighting for a noble cause. Her perishment was an even greater tragedy for Peter, who, lacking the strength to continue, decides to accept Oxford's invitation and leave the fight behind. However, upon arriving in Alexandria, he realizes that his efforts were not in vain and that the adults are passing on everything they have learned to the children. Faced with this, Peter gives up his scholarship and decides to stay and help the cause. He then spends the rest of the day with Gideon and the people of Alexandria, but at dusk, Botha once again appears with a battalion to arrest Peter and anyone who tries to help him. This time, the people are not intimidated and risk their lives so that the young man can escape. Another conflict begins and the police eliminate the residents with shots and blows, in addition to setting their houses on fire. Amidst all the chaos, Botha sees Peter and Gideon fleeing and shoots at them, but the boxer saves the young man, taking a shot in the leg. Despite their disadvantage, the people of Alexandria resist, using their fists and tools to confront the armed police. The young man continues to flee, but he sees Botha attacking one of the residents, demanding to know where Peter is. Tired of all this cowardice, he attacks Botha and the two begin to fight. While Peter uses what he has learned in boxing, Botha attacks him with his baton and gains the upper hand. With his opponent down, the police officer accuses him, as well as all immigrants and natives of the region, of destroying his nation. This speech only motivates Peter even more, and he returns to the fight, exchanging punches with his rival. Finally, the young boxer knocks the police officer down and rushes to help the resident, who is badly injured. However, Botha does not intend to give up so easily and pulls out a gun to eliminate his rival once and for all. Fortunately, Gideon appears at the last minute, and with a piece of wood, he disarms the police officer and eliminates him with a blow to the head. After so many lives lost, the people of Alexandria won this battle, but the war for equal rights continues. With everything he has been through and learned from people like Dr. Carl, Gil Pete, and Maria, Peter takes his side in this conflict and leaves with Gideon to help other communities. Although it is an arduous struggle, Peter moves forward in search of real change in the country, demonstrating that even a young student has the power to change the world. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.